again to those that have been waiting patiently and as well to those just zooming in. We're very glad you could join us this evening. My name is John McKenna, and this is the 7th installment of the Menlo Park Community Collaboration Sessions. This edition is in partnership with 350 Silicon Valley, Menlo Park Climate Team, Menlo Spark, and Peninsula Clean Energy. Tonight, as the title of our event implies, we are embarking on a virtual tour of electric homes, which will include both experts sharing their knowledge and homeowners sharing their electrification experiences. My co-host, Nancy LaRocca Headley, and I are pleased to be your virtual tour guides this evening. Both of us are in the process of electrifying our respective homes, so we have an understanding of the challenges and opportunities presented by home electrification. We are motivated by the climate crisis and have learned that electrifying your home, as well as your transportation, is one of the most impactful individual actions that one can take to preserve a livable planet for our children, future generations, and really all the plants and creatures that make our world so incredibly rich. Nancy, would you like to share a few words and your goal for this evening?
Yes, thanks, John, and welcome everyone. So my hope for tonight is that everyone walks away feeling inspired and having the resources that you need to take the next steps on your home electrification journey. And I'll just encourage you all to, maybe not this evening, but find a buddy, like a friend, a neighbor, a family member who's also electrifying their home, because it's going to be so much easier to walk this path if you have someone else that you're doing it with. It's going to be easier and much more fun. And in terms of my role tonight, it's going to be mostly in the background. So if there's anything that comes up that you need, like technically, feel free to send me a chat privately in the Zoom chat. And I'm just glad that you're all here. So back to you, John.
All right, thank you, Nancy. Yeah, my lofty goal for this evening is that every attendee, myself included, and anyone who watches this recording of this event will have fully electrified their home by the end of 2024. So with these goals in mind, we'd like to check in with you all in a few months to see how your journey is progressing. It would be mutually beneficial for us to hear about your challenges and successes. And we'd like to do our best to provide assistance where we can to help you all move along this journey, overcome hurdles, and eliminate barriers. We hope you'll be amenable to this offer. Please let us know in the chat by direct messaging Nancy if you'd rather not hear from us. So here's a brief look at our agenda for the evening. As mentioned previously, we'll hear from a few experts, have a brief Q&A session, and then we'll hear from homeowners who will share their electrification stories. We will then head into breakout rooms where you can dive deeper with questions. And then lastly, we'll all come back together into the main room for a final Q&A to wrap up our event. This Zoom session will be recorded, and a link to the recording will be sent to all who registered. It will also be posted at the website greenblueandyou.org. Please feel free to put your questions in the chat throughout the event, and we will do our best to answer during and/or after the event. During the designated Q&A sessions, both in the main room and the breakout rooms, please use the raise hand function in the reactions tab at the bottom of your screen. Nancy, is there anything you would like to add?
Yeah, thanks. The one thing I do want to add is that your questions are really important because this is a really dynamic space, and the questions that you have help all of us figure out what else is needed to make this energy transition happen. So don't be shy about asking questions. And, we have presenters tonight who are, experts in the field, but I also know that there are lots of experts in people who signed up to participate in this event. So feel free to share what you know in the chat at any time as we're going along. Thanks, John.
Great. So this virtual event was inspired by the in-person electric home tour that is being held this Saturday, the 14th, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Roughly 40 different homeowners from Brisbane to Morgan Hill and many cities in between are opening up their homes for visitors to see firsthand both partially and fully electrified homes. This is a great opportunity to talk with your neighbors about their electrification journey, to see heat pumps, induction ranges, solar panels, EV chargers, and battery storage systems, and to ask questions about contractors, costs, rebates, challenges, and co-benefits. We highly encourage you to take advantage of this rare opportunity. Please go to electrichometour.org. Again, that's electrichometour.org to register. The event is free, but you'll need to register by tomorrow in order to be able to attend and to receive the addresses of the homes on the tour. So, why electrify your home? I'd like to start to answer this question by sharing some words that I heard recently that inspired me. Many of you here tonight may have children, grandchildren, and/or nephews and nieces. They may ask you at some point about climate change and what it means for their lives and futures. Tom Rivett-Carnac, an author, political strategist, and former senior advisor to the Executive Secretary of the United Nations Climate Convention, takes this approach with his children. He tells them, "You have the biggest opportunity in all of human history to live an incredibly meaningful life. And the actions you take because of the accident of the time of your birth are an order of magnitude in importance compared to most people who've lived before, because you are going to affect the future of life on Earth in 50, 500, 500,000 years by what you do in the next couple decades. So no one is asking for an easy life. Really, deep down, we're asking for a meaningful life. And living now is an incredible gift to that end, because we have this incredible chance to turn things around and be the generation that does that." If, or more likely when, my 9-year-old daughter asks me a big question about climate change, I plan to use this perspective and similar words with her. Moreover, I think we can all benefit from this perspective when we look at our own circumstances, and the challenges before us. So, one of the meaningful actions that we all can take is to electrify our homes. 40% of greenhouse gas emissions in a typical Bay Area city come from buildings. We can each make a dent in that number by electrifying our own homes and encouraging those around us to do the same. Moreover, recent studies have shown the negative impacts of burning fossil fuels in our homes. So in the process of electrification, we can make our homes healthier and safer. And there are also opportunities to save money upfront by converting from gas devices to highly efficient electric devices, as well as potential operational savings. No matter what's motivating your attendance tonight, we're glad to have you here. So our speakers tonight include Diane Sweet of Emerald Eco. Diane is the Chief Business Officer of Emerald Eco, leading a team of energy experts helping clients decarbonize their homes and buildings with the benefit of saving money, increasing comfort, enhancing safety, and helping the environment by eliminating greenhouse gases. James Tulea of Home Energy Analytics. James is the Community Programs Director and Senior Energy Coach for the Home Intel Residential Energy Savings Program offered by Home Energy Analytics. Frank Vargas of the Building Decarbonization Coalition. Frank is a program associate focusing on the Switches On campaign. And I will briefly highlight the assistance that Peninsula Clean Energy is providing homeowners with the transition away from gas-burning appliances. I will now turn it over to Nancy to introduce our first speaker.
All right, so Diane Sweet is our first speaker, and I had the pleasure of meeting her about a year ago when I got really serious about my home electrification journey. And she and all the people at Emerald Eco have been incredible partners on that path. And the thing I really appreciate about Diane is her commitment to educating her clients, so educating me. And at the time, I was newly appointed to Menlo Park's Environmental Quality Commission and had a lot to learn about electrification. And so I'm eternally grateful to Diane for both electrifying my home and also helping me learn about what it means and how important it is. So Diane, over to you.
Great. Well, thank you. That was very nice. Thank you for that introduction, both from you and from John. So Yes, this is our second career. So my husband and I, Eric and I, co-founded Emerald Eco many years ago. And we are committed 100% to decarbonization of the community. And it's because we felt very responsible for our personal negative impact on climate, global pollution, climate change, etc. This is our second career. And basically what happened was Eric decided that he was going to leave B of A. He was in technical project management. He left B of A and he went and he apprenticed as a general contractor and received his GC, his general contractor's license, and his electrician's license, so that we could focus on people like you all. So you all remind me of us, of Eric and myself 20 years ago. We wanted to make a change. We wanted to take action. And we felt that the best way that we could do that is by actually doing the work to electrify. And having that electrical license is crucial to that whole process. And so in turn, I had a career in enterprise software and high tech. I was at PayPal, at Ariba, and eBay, and I left my career. So we both left our careers to focus 100% on decarbonization, on getting rid of fossil fuel appliances in the home. And we focus primarily in retrofits because it's a little bit more complicated. It takes a little bit more technical know-how, but it's all doable. And like Nancy said, we view our role as much as installers, as contractors, as electrification advisors. And one of the things that I want to talk about is thinking about an electrification plan and thinking about what that means. And it doesn't have to be this, this daunting plan and design and so forth. It really does have some components, and we'll talk about them tonight. But it's important to think about it holistically and not just from a point solution perspective, so that you can avoid some of the gotchas that that we've seen and we've heard about and that we're trying to avoid. But we're all in this together, and we're homeowners as well. And so I completely relate, and I think that's what Nancy was trying to say, is that we want to make sure that we educate and debunk some of the myths and correct some of the misinformation out there. And share some of the best practices. So that's what we're going to do tonight. And I know there's going to be some other speakers that are speaking about different elements of what I'm going to share. But if there is a burning question as I go through this conversation with you all, there's a burning question, put it in the chat, and I think Nancy can flag it for me because I'm not going to be able to do both. But I imagine the question that you all have is, okay, I really want to do something, but I don't know what it is, and I don't know where to start. And having an idea of what your overarching goals are is very important, and what you want to accomplish, and over the time horizon. And that might be due to budgetary reasons. It might be because you just installed a new appliance, and therefore you're not ready to get rid of it. But if you have an idea of what your overarching or your end state is, that will really help define the pieces, the projects that need to be done. And one of the resources that we have that is a objective, neutral resource here in the Bay Area is Bay Rent Home Advisors. I highly recommend that you all, if you want more information and more detail from what we're sharing here tonight, that you speak with them. They're financially neutral, so they're not paying for Yelp reviews. They're not getting paid to be introduced to you. They basically are there as a free resource to provide you information, along with the switches on, which I think we'll hear about as well. So that would be could be a starting place for you. And then from there, you want to work really closely with your contractor to think about what you want to get done. And the fundamental piece of this is the electrical infrastructure that you have. And this is why retrofits are a little bit more challenging, because you're dealing with main service panels, sub panels, you're dealing with existing wiring, maybe it's old wiring, you're dealing with breakers, you're dealing with physical space in the panel, you're dealing with space within a garage or within a home. So all those details need to be figured out in advance. And then from there, you can go into identifying the systems and the sizing of those systems, how you live in the house, what your future goals are for that house. And that all comes together to build out a plan. And when you're thinking about the contractors that you're working with, you should feel really confident that they have experience with heat pump technology, that they understand project management, and that they have project management services, that they can give you an order of operations, that they'll work with you on the permitting from start to finish, close out that permit, because not closing out a permit can actually cause problems on the back end if you go to do any more remodeling in your house and you have an open permit. And that they'll help with the rebates. And that's something that I know we'll be talking about, but it's also really important and part of this overall process. So not having a plan, though, the problem with that is that you end up for sure with duplicate work, a lot of rework. You may have missized something. And then in fact, which happened just last week, you end up having to remove a brand new appliance that you put in 3 or 4 months ago because you didn't think about the holistic picture. So let's talk about what you're going to put in this plan and how to think about this end state. And there's 3 major factors. When I speak to our clients and our homeowners that have worked with us, you could have a goal for, you want to save the climate, right? Your goal might be along the lines of health and comfort. Your goal might be along the lines of cost savings. So if you're looking at environment, the 2 biggest offenders in your home right now that generate the most greenhouse gas emissions are your water heater, your gas water heater, and your gas furnace. So those would be the 2 things you'd want to tackle if the reason you're doing this is for environmental reasons. If health and comfort are your primary drivers, what are inspiring to do this, then you'd want to think about your furnace again, right? The air quality in your house, your furnace turns on, it turns off, it's loud. It doesn't generate very high air quality within your home. And with these smoky days that we've been having, that might be a consideration. And then of course your stove, your gas stove. And that's a harder conversation for a lot of people because there's a lot of people that love cooking with their gas stove. But frankly, when you fire that thing up, you are inhaling benzene and you are inhaling carbon monoxide and you're inhaling formaldehyde. And when you turn that thing off, you're getting methane. So there's nothing, and this is directly in your house. This is not in your garage. This is being pumped directly into your home, around yourself, your children, your grandchildren, so forth. So those would be the 2 things that you might want to consider if health and comfort are your concern. And then the final piece is if it's more about cost savings, you'd want to try looking at your water heater. Your water heater is moving to a heat pump water heater because of its efficiency, because we're using heat pump technology. Heat pump technology is 400% more efficient than its gas counterpart. And the reason is, it seems completely illogical, but the reason is that you're not creating heat. You are moving heat. You're moving molecules of heat to heat that water in the tank. And so as a result, your gas bill that is dedicated towards your water heating will go to 0. And on the flip side, on the electrical side, it's barely going to be a blip. You're barely going to see an uptick on your electric bill with your heat pump water heater. So that would be a cost savings. And then if you have an existing air conditioner and your furnace and you swap those out to a heat pump HVAC system, you will see cost savings. Again, the heat pump HVAC system is 3 to 4 times more efficient than its gas counterpart, and you're getting the cooling and the heating at that level of efficiency that you didn't have before. So those would be the 2 things that you would want to consider for if you're thinking about cost savings. So now that we've talked about like the overarching idea, the next piece is on the electrical side. And there are some misunderstandings. The minute somebody says, oh, I want to electrify my house, oftentimes the response is, oh, well, you're going to have to upgrade your main panel. That's not the case. In 90%, and we do whole house electrification, start to finish. We focus on energy efficiency. We do everything related to electrification. In 90% of our projects, you do not need to upgrade your main service panel. And that's a big, big plus. It's a little bit of a myth too. Of course, you do have to manage your power usage, but it's not a necessary thing. There are instances where you do have to upgrade to, say, 200 amps. But we just got told 2 weeks ago that a contractor told one of our clients that he has to upgrade to 400 amps, which is not even close to the reality. So that consideration, you have to think about, you will need dedicated circuits. There are appliances out there where you have a plug-in where you can use a regular outlet, a 120 volt outlet, as opposed to a 240 volt dedicated circuit. But the solution, it needs to fit within your house. So if you have a lot of teenagers or a big family, maybe that 120 volt water heater may not be as practical for you all. But again, it depends on your personal situation. And those would be things that you would talk about with your contractor to determine what that right solution looks like. What else was I going to say? This is why having confidence in your contractor is super important. Knowing that he or she has background in the electrical piece of it, as well as the heat pump technology, is important. But let's talk about where you start. So let's say you're like, okay, I know I want to electrify, and I have my ideas around why and where my end state is, but the win-win-win today would be your water heater. And the reason I say that, again, it's super efficient, right? So the cost savings are there. And our climate is great for a water heater. We typically like to install water heaters in an attached garage, which tends to have an excess of heat, which makes it even more efficient, right? Because it needs to take the heat to heat the water. And it emits cold air, it exhausts cold air, so that kind of cools off your garage if you use it for other purposes. But with rebates, these incentives that we have now, and there's some that are forthcoming at the end of this month, it is absolutely a no-brainer. It actually makes it even Steven to swap out your gas water heater with a heat pump water heater when you combine the efficiency, the power usage, and the fact that we have so many rebates here in the Bay Area that are incenting homeowners to make this change. And in fact, it may actually be cheaper to install a heat pump water heater than a heat pump, than a gas water heater. So that might be your starting point. And my only advice to you is please, please, please do not wait until it fails. Whether you're talking about a gas water heater or a heat pump water heater, they often fail at their life term is about 10 years. And of course, you know, it could be a little more, it could be a little less. It's more or less 10 years. Please do not wait for that 10-year mark to make this decision, because what happens is if the complication of adding a fuel substitution installation with this new technology, and these tanks are not the same size, this isn't a plug and play. You do have to consider the spacing, the sizing of the water heaters, etc. It makes it so much more, it's a smoother experience. You get exactly what you want if you can anticipate that change out. So please don't wait for the, that would be my only advice. Don't wait for the emergency moment. And frankly, there's not too many people that can go for days on end with, or would want to go for days on end without hot water, right? Just from a practical perspective. And then while you're doing that, you can also, while they're in there working on the electrical, you can think about pre-wiring for your for an induction cooktop. You don't need to swap it out immediately, but you could certainly pre-wire for it. You could put in a 50 amp or 40, there's some 40 amp induction stoves, 30 amp, whatever. And then also clothes dryer. The other element in the house is gas dryers. Now, you should know that newer homes actually have been pre-wired for for a conventional electric dryer. So you might be in a situation today that you could remove your gas dryer, if that's what you have, and put in a conventional electric dryer, as opposed to a heat pump dryer, which we personally don't have, only because I have three teenagers. We do lots and lots of laundry. They're very, very efficient, but they use half the power, but they take twice as long to actually dry. So just a little tidbit there. But you could also consider a heat pump dryer. And then another big piece that we talked about is swapping out your furnace, and if you have an existing AC, to a heat pump HVAC system. Now that is going to be by far first of all, it is the largest consumer of power in the house, but it also tends to be the biggest emitter of greenhouse gas emissions. So, and it's going to be your biggest ticket item in the electrification process. And if it's done well, though, when you think about the ducting and you seal it and you make sure that you've considered the airflow and the balance of that airflow plus air quality, and you put in a system like a higher quality heat pump HVAC system, it is absolutely awesome. It's super quiet. It's it runs, it's a variable speed system. These things are very modern, great technology, and it can really, I can't tell you the number of times that after we've done an installation of a heat pump HVAC system, we've had homeowners who have older houses, like 60, 70-year-old homes, say, wow, my home feels really modern. There's something about just it's quiet, it's clean, and it feels great. So when you have a properly installed heat pump HVAC system, it can really, really improve the comfort of the home. Now, a gas furnace will last about 20 years. So, I understand there's budgets and so forth, but that's just something to think about. If you're at a point that you need to swap it out, you swap out your gas furnace, I would highly recommend you think about an HVAC system, only because not only are you saving the climate, but you're also really improving the comfort of your home. And then as the final piece of this, which was also mentioned, but this is more of a convenience thing, is EV charging. And you can add a level 2 EV charger to your home. That is a higher gauged wire. It can be, it's a heavy duty wire, but you can also just do a trickle charge where you literally plug it into a regular outlet and overnight charge your electric vehicle up. So the EV charging is another piece of this whole electrification package that you would want to consider. And then as the final part of all of this green equation is thinking about renewable energy. So we also think about solar installations and battery backup. And on the technology front, on battery backup, things are moving quickly. And one of the things that will be coming out early next year, maybe mid-year 2024 is, and I'm sure you've heard of it, is this idea of using your car battery, so your electric vehicle battery, to power your home. So it's bidirectional charging. Now, there are a lot of cars already being manufactured that can handle that. The components that are missing right now are the combiners and the transformers and all the software and the intelligence, the communication protocols that do the AC/DC electrical back and forth between the car to the home and the home to the car. So that's the piece that's still missing. It's being built out. We are certified to do that through a company called Decibel, but that's forthcoming. And so there's a lot of exciting technology advances that are being made on the battery backup. And so that would be the full technical electrification green equation formula. So I'm going to stop for a second. I see some chats here. I've been kind of going on and on. And maybe if there's we can go on to James, or if you wanted to stop and do a quick Q&A, whatever is best for the group, I'm open to it.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Diane. Yeah, I think we'll let James go and then we'll open it up for Q&A. But we really appreciate you sharing with us your knowledge, expertise, and advice. And I'll also add that we're really glad you made that career change. And so, yeah, so next up is James Tulea. I think James made a similar career change maybe 10 or 20 years ago. James helped me with my home, helped me understand my energy usage. And he's going to talk about strategies to avoid those panel upgrades that Diane mentioned, which you can often do. And he'll talk about some other technical aspects. So, James, all you.
Great. Thank you, John. Next slide. So I work for Home Energy Analytics, and we run the free Home Intel program for PG&E. So everybody can take advantage of that program. It's another foundational resource for folks, along with the others that Diane mentioned. You can sign up at save.hea.com or contact me, james.t@hea.com. The biggest question or one big question that a lot of people run into or are concerned about is whether or not their electrical panel can handle electrifying their home and all the things that they eventually want to do. The answer is, for the most part, yes, for most homes. Just as Diane mentioned. And the other thing that Diane stressed was the need for planning. It's really important to think holistically, just like she said, about all the things you eventually want to do, because that's where people go wrong and they oversize, or meaning they put in a 50 amp car charger when they don't really need that. That would be 300 miles a day of mileage range. And that precludes some people from then having enough power capacity to do other things. So the great news is that most people can actually electrify even if they have a 100 amp panel. And if you have a bigger than 100 amp, it just gets easier. You do have to make sure you're planning properly. And the biggest issue is mostly about electrical capacity and not physical capacity. You can think of that as the power capacity or amperage of the panel. The other thing that comes into play is it's not just the panel in some cases, it's also the service line capacity, power capacity that comes from PG&E's wires. And the worst case scenario is it's a limited capacity, maybe 100 amps underground. So it's important to properly plan and size, do all the planning, and to help avoid not only an expensive electrical panel upgrade, but in some cases avoiding a over $20,000 project and a 1-year delay waiting for PG&E to do that project for you. Now, some physical capacity, just to be clear, has to do with space for circuit breakers. So sometimes there's not enough places for the circuit breakers to go, but that's much easier and cheaper to deal with than the power capacity problem. You don't want to oversize or upsize your panel for no good reason, and that can be very limited and expensive. So houses less than 100 amps and particularly less than 60 amps probably need to increase the size of their panel. Next slide. So can this be done? Yes. And this is one example of a sample of close to 1,500 of our Home Intel clients that have, we analyze all the electric usage and gas usage in a home. So it's a very holistic analysis. And part of that is to look at the panel, the power used over the last year. What's the peak power and how much, what's the percentage of their panel capacity that they used? And this is an example of close to 1,500 of our clients that told us how big their panel was in terms of amps. Amps is on the vertical axis and the number of homes on the right. So you see there's a lot of homes with 100 amps, some with 125, 150, a lot at 200. the average panel size of this group is 177 amps. But even at 100 amps, you'll see that this orange color is the remaining capacity of the power capacity or ampacity or amps. The bluish color is what they've used at peak over the last year. And this is consistent with another broad look that we did over 22,000 of our clients that it also are not using anywhere near their capacity. And there's also Tom Cabot and Josie Galler did a project for the county of San Mateo recently or last few years. And the examples that they ran into working home to home was also very consistent with this, as well as their own homes that are already fully or mostly electrified, also don't even use all their power capacity. Next slide. So how do you make sure that you're not oversizing or upsizing your panel when you don't need to spend that money and time? 7 ways are listed here. The first 3 are probably the most critical. Just as Diane said, you want to plan ahead. You want to think of all the things that you want to electrify in your home and that she went through, including the car charger, and even the solar, if you wanted to add solar in the future. You want to plan all that out and make sure that you're picking, as Diane described, something that meets the needs of you and your family and the other residents in the home, but don't oversize it. Don't make it, higher power than it really needs to be. And there's a huge range of power required or amps required by different devices. And people go wrong. The most common thing that I see in all the clients, many hundreds of clients I've dealt with, is that they're oversizing their electric car charger. And that hurts their ability to then electrify other things in the future. 20 amps, as in shown in number 3, 20 amps can give you enough power to go 39,000 miles a year. So you don't need 50 amps. Another common oversizing of equipment is a general problem in the HVAC industry, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, is the heat pump is often oversized. So make sure you insist on the contractors that you're working with, they're doing a proper industry standard manual J heating and cooling load calculation so you don't oversize your equipment. There's other choices for different things that matter. And when it might be a challenge, there are also circuit sharing and circuit splitting or circuit pausing devices as shown here that can help you share a single circuit and the power required for 2 different things. And that works just fine. Another thing here is the more efficient your home, if you can improve, reduce air leakage, insulation, less hot water waste, you don't need as much power. Next slide. So this is about the physical capacity challenge. This isn't as critical as the power challenge because of the expense of upsizing a whole panel, and particularly if someone needs to upgrade their service line from PG&E. But here are some ways that you can make more space on your panel. One of the simplest ways is just, as shown in number 9, you add a sub panel to your main panel, and it just taps into one area, one spot on your main panel, and then gives you more circuits to play with. But there's other things, like all the ones in green here are all similar, is that you're making more space through the sizing of the different devices you're using, either smaller circuit breakers or adding a sub panel. There's I mentioned the circuit splitting or circuit sharing devices. The last 2 in red have to do with solar. There's some limitations on how big a solar capacity, rooftop solar you can have if you tap it into the main circuit breakers of your panel. Whereas both of number 10 and number 11 are ways that actually allow you to have a larger system if there's a line there for you, and it doesn't affect your power and physical capacity of the panel itself. The line tap just means you plug in or connect the solar between the meter and the main breaker of the panel. And then number 11, there's a collar that goes behind, essentially take the meter off, and there's a collar that goes over that open hole, and then the meter goes on top and it taps into the power there. So it's before the panel are those ways that number 10 and number 11. One of the critical things is, you know, in addition to, and I'm almost done, the planning ahead for everything you want to do, and avoiding oversizing something along the way as a result of not planning properly. Another thing to keep in mind is that most electricians and other contractors will look at the power capacity needed based on the most conservative method. It's simpler for them and easier for them in the National Electric Code to figure out whether or not you need more power capacity. But that involves counting up the number of circuits in a home and rounding everything up. And when you add up a whole bunch of rounded up numbers, you end up with a much bigger panel capacity, power capacity than you really need or ever use. So what my previous slide about the power used and how much is still available, only, you know, on average of that 1,500 are people only using 34% of their panel capacity, power capacity. Yeah, that right there, that this is based on the optional method in the National Electric Code. So an important point for all of you is you have to push back on the contractors and the electricians to not just simply use the easiest thing for them that is very, very conservative, and because then they get to sell you a bigger panel and more work where you don't really need it. So you have to insist that they look at it from the optional method in the National Electric Code. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, James. It's quite clear from the information that you provided that most homes can fully electrify on a 100 amp panel, which saves the homeowner time and money and saves the grid so that our neighbors can do the same. We will now have some time for a Q&A with Diane and James. Again, please use the raise hand function in the reactions tab at the bottom of your screen. And I also want to note that, you know, Diane and James may not have the answers for all of your questions, but we will make a note of those that we can't answer. We'll do some research and we'll do our best to get back to you. So again, this is an opportunity for any folks to ask questions of Diane and James. And don't be afraid to ask questions. If you have a question, it's likely that someone else has the same question and you can be the brave one to ask it. Jean, you want to unmute yourself?
There
There you go.
I'm unmuted. All right. So I got all excited listening to Diane as I said, I want to hire Diane. Do I need to hire both Diane and James?
We're not mutually exclusive, and we don't get hired. We don't cost anything or sell anything. And we're not contractors. We don't do the work. We just do an analysis to help you understand your energy use and help in your planning. So we're more of an upfront resource for you. So you can use both of us. We don't do the actual work. We just help advise you and give you data and analysis.
Yeah, the way I've often sent interested homeowners to HEA, and I think James put it in the chat, because they provide a lot of data, and the data is good to have. So it basically you sign on. It's fairly easy with your PG&E login. You have to know a little bit about your house, but you can sign on and you get a lot of data around your usage, your power usage, what's pulling the loads, your variable loads, your so forth and so on. And then that helps, it just helps us when we're designing the project. But yes, you are more than welcome. I'll put my email in the chat box, and we would be happy to chat and help you.
All right, thank you.
All right, thanks for the question. Joyce?
Yeah, I have two questions. One is, you said soon there are going to be more rebates. And so I'm looking at doing heat pump, HVAC, and water heater, but I keep waiting because I hear these rebates are all. So the question is, what's the timing on that? And then the second one was, I have a stove, a freestanding stove that's electric oven, like gas on the top. Is it possible to just retrofit the burners? Or do I really have to landfill my whole unit and buy something new?
Okay, sorry, I was typing something. I was typing in my information. So on the rebates, I think there's somebody going to be talking about rebates, but there's a whole new group of rebates coming out from Clean Tech that is California wide, that will be available at the end of this month, October 31st, and then everything that's installed. My understanding is everything that's installed post that, so forth. So now is the time, and doing it together, like you're talking about, Joyce, is great, because you obviously save on rolling out the truck, as they say in the construction business. In terms of whether you can just remove the top, if those are two separate things, you might be able to just take the cooktop, the cooktop off, but I would hate to mislead you or misguide you, so we'd probably want to see it before I make any recommendations.
As a short-term fix, you can do what I did, because I made a mistake in my major remodel 8 years ago and put in a gas cooktop. But in the last almost 2 years, I've been using two induction burners plugged into local outlets on both sides, and they just sit on cookie sheets on top of my stove, and the gas valve has been turned off for a while. And I've been able to do all of my cooking on those two induction burners, and they're only like $100 a piece. So that has worked just fine, and I do a lot of cooking.
Yeah, James, I was thinking about doing that, just getting the portable ones and waiting it out.
Yeah, I'm waiting for a circuit to be freed up, because I'm going to swap out something else. And it's on the other side of the wall, thank goodness.
Okay. It also seems like it's an opportunity to do retrofits if someone wants to start up a small business.
Yeah. Other questions?
Yeah, thanks, James, Diane. Yeah, I'll just make one quick addition regarding the ranges. There's a company called Channing Street Copper. They're coming out with an induction range. So it's got the cooktop and the oven, and it'll have a battery in as part of the device. So that helps you a lot with your electrical service requirements, your installation. It plugs into a regular outlet. And it also provides backup power for devices if you have a power outage, as well as they say you can probably cook for a day or two with that battery backup. So
it's a really elegant solution. As John just said, it plugs into a regular 120 volt outlet. But it performs as a 240 volt, 40 amp cooking for oven and cooktop, because it's drawing the power from the battery for the cooking. So it's a really elegant, really interesting solution.
Yeah. Gerald.
We decided, it's a PG&E question. We're committed to what you're talking about and have been for a number of years. Decided to go to electric vehicles, which eliminates the fossil fuel problem. Also went to solar panels. And when we sized the solar panels, this was 4 years ago, PG&E had some kind of restrictions about the number of panels you could put on. When we first did all of this, it was great. We were getting about $150 back at the end of the year, and we didn't have any gasoline prices and took care of all the electricity in the house. But PG&E keeps raising the rates, which makes that difference go small. And if I would have known that, I guess the real question is can PG&E limit the number of panels you put on? And if not, can you just maximize it for the future? The number of panels.
You want me to take that? I don't know, James.
I can briefly say one thing. I'm not a solar expert. But they you have to justify the size based on usage plus some projections of what you're going to do. I know that many of my clients they're producing over 130, 140% of their current usage because they were able to get approval to oversize the system for current use, but because of they're going to get an EV, or you just have to mention all those things. I don't know the exact rules of that. The other thing to note is that gas rates are projected to rise almost twice as fast as electric rates over the next decade. So even though both are high and rising, you don't want to be on gas, and never buy a new gas appliance.
Just to comment on something you might be interested in, the calculations for going battery electric and solar were very complicated. And I think it would be very useful, I haven't found it yet, for a calculator on the web that lets you put in the current gasoline car you have, the current, the electric car you're considering, how many miles you drive, and your electric usage, minus the gasoline car expenses, because you don't have those with electric cars. And when you figure all of that out, the cost savings, it put in the main way, it's silly not to get an electric car financially.
I totally agree that it would be really helpful, and it's a big selling. It would be a really big selling point to do that, to have that calculator. I haven't seen it either, Gerald. So, but I wanted to go back to your question. When did you install those solar panels?
3 years ago.
Okay, so you're under NEM 2.0, right? That's the
Yes.
net energy metering agreement with PG&E. So when they moved to NEM 3.0 in April of this year of 2023, PG&E put in a rule that said if you add more than a small percentage to your existing array that they know about, right? The array that you currently have a PG&E connection agreement for. If you add more, it actually eliminates your NEM 2.0 agreement and you start over with the entire array on NEM 3.0.
That's one of the sneaky things PG&E does that
correct. So yeah. So unfortunately, at this point, you can't add. So it sounds like if I understood your polemic, is that you're saying that you're paying more for electricity because, well, the rates have gone up and you're using more. But at this point, there's no way without jeopardizing your NEM 2.0 agreement, which is a 20-year agreement with them. And it may push you into 3.0. Now, I know there's a percentage, and I don't know what that percentage is, and I could find out.
Yeah, I know what that is, and that's what would happen.
Yeah, so
it's cost prohibitive to do that now.
Correct. So I don't know if I'd recommend it exactly.
Okay. Well, thank you for the questions. Yeah, we'll have opportunities for more questions during the rest of the event. Thanks again, Diane and James. So now we're going to move on and discuss some of the available financial incentives and the tools to find them and some other resources. So Frank Vargas of the Building Decarbonization Coalition, or BDC, is going to walk us through these tools that are available to homeowners at the Switches On website. Frank, take it away.
Hello, everyone. Again, I work for the Switches On. And the Switches On is the consumer-facing marketing campaign. And the whole purpose of this program, of this campaign, is to give residents the tools and resources to help electrify their home. And we do that through two tools. We do that through our incentive tool finder, and the link to that is here. I'll also put it in the chat to make it easy. And we have our, oh wait, they already did that. Thank you. And our contractor tool finder. And these are two very easy to use. They are managed by TechClean California. And I'll go more into that in a second. So this is just how it looks right when you go to the page. All you do is you type in your zip code, and then there's a drop-down menu. It says home function now, but you can drop down to solar, battery, laundry, cooking, whatever you're looking for exactly. And you just go and hit search. And then when you hit search, what comes up is a list of incentives that are available in your area. I went ahead and just focused on induction cooking and heat pumps for Menlo Park. And I could only screenshot two, but there are two for induction cooking. And the first one that pops up, it's on the left-hand side. It's through Bayron, and it's $250 per unit. Now, you'll have to click learn more if you want to see if you qualify for the rebate. There's a lot of stipulations and just like income qualifications and homeowner versus renter and who can qualify for these incentives. So you just have to hit the learn more button. The incentives that pop up are all available federal, state, regional, and local incentives. So everything is here, and you can possibly layer incentives on top of each other. And if you want to know if you can layer an incentive on top of another, you'll just have to hit learn more, and you can get all the information. And then right next to the induction ones are the heat pump ones that I went and searched. And there are 11 available for 94025. I only did 2 here, but again, there's 9 more, and you guys can all go in and search for them or through them directly. And I'm glad I put this slide in. It's been mentioned a lot. There is a new rebate coming at the end of October, and this will appear on the Switches On webpage. If you come in November, it should pop up, and you can get all the information here. So it starts October 31st, and there are some basic overview details about this incentive. What I found out is homeowners in all of California through this can receive, up to $3,800 in rebate funds, which is amazing. And you can go even higher. I couldn't find the direct number for those, but if you qualify, it's income verified, you could possibly make more or get more back. But this is one that's coming up. I just thought this was an exciting one. It's been talked about a lot at work. And so I went ahead and threw this one up on there. And there are more. There's, the IRA tax credits that are coming out. And we don't have much information on those other than that the state has been given a list of qualifiers that the state has to create the program, and we don't have information on what that looks like yet. But if you subscribe to our newsletter, and I put the link, there it is. Everyone's been talking about the IRA. You can go ahead and subscribe to our newsletter, and you'll get constant updates of new incentives, new rebates, different tools that we have to help you electrify. There's important news that come up from our other partner orgs that work in the same space that we put in our newsletter. It's very beneficial. If you go ahead and subscribe to that, you can stay up to date. And next, I want to go into our contractor finder tool. Now, as Diane mentioned, it's really important to make sure that the contractor you're working with has been vetted and is knowledgeable on just the electric needs of your home while you make this transition. And these are all vetted contractors through TechClean California. And it's the same, it works the same way. You can hit any boxes for a contractor specialty, type in your zip code. You can even filter it further through the distance from your home, and then hit search. And then it comes up with vetted, qualified contractors that you can work with directly. And also on our website, you can get some collateral. If you want to just learn more about heat pumps or induction cooking or solar or batteries, or just want to have this information to pass to your friends and family. There are PDFs on this website, on this webpage here that you can download, and you can just research more for your own reference. And that is me. I typically work with events and volunteers. So if I don't have the answer for you, I will definitely put you in the direction of our policy team that works heavy on the ground with this type of stuff, and some other rebate incentive experts on my team.
Okay. Thank you so much, Frank. Those are some much needed and very helpful tools. We are running a little bit behind, so we're gonna move on to the next stage. Real quickly, I would just want to mention, as I mentioned earlier, Peninsula Clean Energy is one of our partners on this event. Peninsula Clean Energy, or PCE, is a community choice aggregation agency. It is the official electricity provider for San Mateo County and the city of Los Banos. There are similar organizations in Silicon Valley, San Jose, around the Bay Area, and through the state. PCE was founded in 2016 with a mission to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The agency serves a population of 810,000 by providing more than 3,600 gigawatts hours annually of electricity. That's 50% renewable, 100% clean, and at a lower cost than PG&E. PCE has a home upgrade program that provides income qualified homeowners with repairs and energy efficiency upgrades at no cost. And they're in the process of enhancing this program to serve all income levels, provide no cost home electrification, whole home electrification to income qualified homeowners, as well as an emergency replacement program for water heaters, for example, if you find yourself in that situation that we advised you against. In addition, Menlo Park has received funding from the state to support income qualified homeowners in Bellhaven to electrify their homes. The city's in the process of putting this program together, but it is likely that it will be administered by PCE. And we wanted to highlight some of the rebates and financial incentives available from PCE. These are available to any PCE customer in San Mateo County or the city of Los Banos. As you can see here, there's a $2,000 rebate for heat pump water heaters, a $2,500 rebate for heat pump HVAC systems. There's a $1,000 rebate for potential panel upgrade work. And PCE also offers a 0% loan up to $10,000 that would be payable over a 2 to 5 year period, which is up to the borrower to determine. In addition to these incentives, as Frank mentioned, there are other rebates available through BayREN and the state of California. As we talked about, the SGIP program is rolling out later this month. $3,800 for a heat pump water heater, up to $4,885 for income qualified individuals and homes. And you can currently get a 30% federal tax break for electrification projects, capped at $2,000 per year through the Inflation Reduction Act. And then next year, the additional IRA rebates will be available for low to moderate income households. So now we are going to hear from a few of our neighbors who have completed a variety of home electrification projects. And we just want to thank all of you homeowners for being here. As I mentioned, we are running a little bit late, so don't want to cut you short, but speedier the better. So Jennifer, you are first up.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. I'll keep it brief. Our family has been on a home electrification journey to electrify. We've electrified 4 homes so far in our extended family. And we did it for the reason that John mentioned earlier, which is I need to be able to look my kids in the eye and say, we're doing everything we can to give you a livable planet. And so that's why we're on this journey. And not only does it help our planet and our kids, but it also helps make your home cleaner, healthier, safer. So it's a benefit all around. So we've done everything that's been mentioned. So I'm happy to talk about solar, electric cars, heat pumps, water heaters, electric stove, electric dryer, all the things. And I'm also happy we coordinated everything ourselves because we like to be hands-on in that way. So I can talk more of the 3 lessons that I'm happy to talk about in the breakout room were how to ask for help, know your rebates, and make sure you get multiple bids, because we got some all over the place bids for pricing. So it's really important that you get multiple. So I wanted to highlight 2 other ways to ask for help that haven't been called out. So there's, I loved speaking with an electric home ambassador at the beginning of our journey. And that's a program offered through Fossil Free Buildings, Silicon Valley. I believe their website is fossilfreebuildings.org, and you can say, talk to an electric home ambassador. And that's basically what you're doing tonight, is getting to talk to somebody else and pick their brain around what they did. And that was really helpful for us. Know your rebates, you've learned about them. Just make sure you know all the things you need to do to get them, like taking pictures or saving receipts. And then again, happy to talk more about the ins and outs of the bids we got, because they were all over the place. So it's good to do your homework. All right, I will pass it along to the next person.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. And yeah, just a reminder, we'll all have a chance to go into the breakout rooms with these homeowners and talk to them in more depth. Nicole?
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. Hi, everybody. So I did most of my electrification in 2016 when we were, it just happened to be fortunate that we were doing a very major remodel on our house. Basically, we gutted it and started over from scratch. And by virtue of being involved in the climate movement and being in 350 Silicon Valley, I knew some very clued in people that could tell me what to prioritize and what kind of equipment I should really be getting when remodeling. So at that time, we put in, let's see if I can remember this, heat pump water heater and an electric recirculation pump to get the water from the garage all the way to the other end of the house, and not have it be on all the time, heating water all the time. What else? We got a wall oven that's electric, an induction cooktop that's obviously electric, a heat pump clothes dryer, and I think that's everything. What we didn't do was the HVAC system, the furnace, and we put in air conditioning, but we debated doing it. We didn't really know where to get good help and good advice, which is no longer a problem, lucky for you. And the option that we were given was more expensive. And you probably know, if you've ever done a big remodel, that the price tag just goes up, 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 up all the time. And we decided to save some money. Well, I really regretted that because it seemed like a really bad decision later. And so Diane just helped us swap out a part of our furnace and turn it into a heat pump furnace and air conditioning unit. And so we got rid of that last stumbling block that we had. So now I feel really good. And pretty much, yes, we still have a gas fireplace, but I guess we're just not going to use it. And one of these days we'll shut off the gas.
All right. Thank you for sharing that, Nicole. And we'll look forward to the breakout room with you. Ronan?
Yeah, I'm going to ask Nicole about that replacement of the furnace, because I have the same problem. So Menlo Park, I'm a Menlo Park resident, moved into this house in 2011. In 2018, we did kind of a major remodel. As part of that, I wanted to kick out gas altogether. My problem was that my contractor, that I really appreciated, by the way, that they did great work, but they were not very familiar with kind of, low carbon technology. I relied on them too heavily. And when I talked about kind of the furnace, for example, they didn't know about air source heat pumps and whatnot. They said, okay, it's a geothermal thing. We're going to need to drill into the ground, 300 feet. It's really expensive. I was like, okay. That's fine. We'll deal with that one later. So, but as a consequence, we've got kind of an electric dryer. We've got kind of the induction range. We've got an electric car. But we're still missing the furnace. We're still missing the water heater, and that's something that I'm looking forward to doing soon. And this goes to show you the importance of really getting information from people that that's their specialty. So I'm going to stop here and happy to talk in the break room if anybody's got more.
Great. Thank you so much, Ronan. Brian, you're up.
Hi, Brian Kissel. I'm also here in Menlo Park. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So my journey started with an electric car, Chevy Spark EV, about 8 or 9 years ago, which then led to a home EV charger. And then we recently, 2 years ago, added a heat pump hot water heater, and then this year added a heat pump HVAC system. And we're under contract under NEM2 for a solar system that we'll probably install next year. It's the GAF Timberline system for folks who are also looking to potentially replace your roof in conjunction with the solar system. That's a good option that I'm happy to talk about in the breakout room. That's it.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Brian. Okay. And yeah, thanks to all you homeowners for sharing your stories. So now, as mentioned before, we have the opportunity to join the breakout rooms led by these folks that you just heard from. So this will give you the chance to dig into their projects in more detail, ask specific questions, and maybe learn about what your journey could look like. And then James will also lead a breakout room. So if you'd like to learn more about the Watt Diet concept and how to avoid panel upgrades, James will be available for that. And then Ronan will be joined by Joe Lamb, who is available to take questions about owning an electric vehicle as a person who rents his home and typically charges his car away from his place of residence. So please note that you can join any breakout room you like. You can move around from one room to the other as you please. So Nancy will initiate the breakout rooms if she hasn't done so already. Please choose your room and let us know if you have any questions. We'll probably spend 10 to 15 minutes in there, and then we'll come back to the main room to wrap up.